Do you often wonder what going no contact with your toxic parents would feel like, and if it would finally give you your very well-deserved peace of mind? Well, you clicked on the right video. My name is Trixie and I moved out of my parents' house as soon as I turned 18, going very low contact, and then a couple of years later I took a job on the other side of the world on a different continent, leaving them behind completely, going absolutely no contact, blocking them as soon as my plane landed. And it was the best, most peaceful 3 years of my entire life. First of all, welcome back to Talks with Trix, where I share with you the most vulnerable, most raw, most intimidating to share stories of my entire life, in hopes of it maybe helping someone out there, especially if you're going through a similar experience. I choose a new topic every week to talk about. This week's topic is being estranged from your parents. I cope with my trauma through humor, so if you see me laughing, giggling while talking about having toxic parents and going no contact with them, this is my way to cope, okay? So let's get into it. First of all, what is the definition of being estranged from your parents? Let me read you the Google definition right here. Being estranged from parents is a state of severe, intentional, physical and emotional separation between an adult child and their parent, resulting in no or very infrequent contact. So that is the definition right there. Some of you might already know what that entails, and some of you might just be curious about it, or you might be wondering whether that is something that you should do for yourself. I might not have all the answers for you, but I can definitely tell you my personal story and experience of navigating my adult life, being very low contact, no contact, and very low contact again with my parents, who I have zero emotional connection to and I don't really consider to be my parents. Am I their blood? Yes. Do I have any sort of feelings or connection towards them? I had a lot of anger and resentment, and I used to have a lot of sadness, but working through that, now I mostly just have nothing. It's like a lifelong journey of grieving, and grief is not linear. You can have a really good day, you can have a bad day. You can think one time you're completely over it, and you can have a day where you're crying on the kitchen floor. So to give you a bit of background on my parents, they both grew up in communist Romania. My dad was born in 55 and my mom was born in 62. I don't know their ages. I don't care to calculate their ages. They are both a lot older than me, and they had me when my mom was turning 40 and my dad was already 47 at that point. So there's definitely not only a generational disconnect, but also a huge cultural and socioeconomic disconnect in the ways that we grew up. They both come from not so fortunate circumstances, and obviously growing up in communist Romania by itself is not a good situation to be a child in. And also throughout the course of their life, they both had some very traumatic events happen to them, which I will not be detailing on here, not because I owe them anything, simply because I don't feel like it is necessary for me to go into that now. Right now, I'm just going to tell you that they both had major shit happen in their lives multiple times. My dad already had a child from my previous marriage. My brother, he's like 20 something years older than me, okay? So he already had a child, and my dad is also a very peculiar person. I don't think he ever really wanted children, but he also already had my brother. So when he met my mom, he really did not want more children. And my mom stayed with him for a good couple of years before she finally fell pregnant at 39. She was just so convinced that she was supposed to be a mother. She really, really wanted a kid, apparently, and my dad really did not. It was just not a fortunate situation. And although people in my life have told me that my mom really, really did want a child, I always felt like she didn't want me. And that even if she really wanted to be a mother, she did not want to be a mother to me specifically. And my dad didn't want a child at all. Also, please excuse if I'm not looking at the camera a lot in this video. I just find it a bit easier and a bit less demanding to just look out into the void and tell my story that way. I feel like when I'm looking at the camera, I'm looking someone directly in the eyes. And while I can do that for the intro, this video is just very, very vulnerable, even for me who puts everything out there. So if I'm just looking there, just know I want to be able to look you in the eyes and tell you this story that way, but it is something that I genuinely feel anxious and stressed opening up about, even though I want to put it out there and I want to help someone who's going through something similar, but I just find it a bit easier on my soul to just look whatever's out there. As a baby and as a small toddler, I really did not feel a lot of affection from my parents. I was home a lot alone with my dad because my mom was the only one working. My dad never worked a normal job in his entire life. He did some teaching here and there, and mostly he was editing for a magazine that one of his childhood friends was running, and he would just edit some books and articles and just work from home and not really make any money at all, but at least he was working at some points in his life. I don't know. But my mom, when I was a small child, she was working a lot. Since she was the only one who wanted me, my dad really did not care for me at all, and my mom wasn't at home to care for me. But also, I don't know if something switched in my mom or if really I just wasn't the specific child that she wanted, but I remember being a small child and asking her to play with me because I didn't have any siblings my age living at home with me, and she would just say no, or she'd just be sitting, or I remember just being in my room a lot. Okay, I was definitely a bedroom kid, and when I found that definition on TikTok of being a bedroom kid and just staying in your bedroom your entire childhood while you were living at home and also your teen years, I related to that so hard because I never dared to go into the living room or a kitchen, and every time I was making, let's say, food for myself as a teen because I couldn't eat what my mom cooked and someone else would come into the kitchen, I would just go into this insane rage, have this huge emotional outburst because I didn't want to be near those people and I didn't consider them my family at all. Basically, the background on my childhood is that I was very neglected. I never got my emotions taken into consideration ever. It was never important what I wanted. My feelings were never important. I was yelled at a lot. I was very severely emotionally abused and sometimes also physically, but thankfully the physical abuse wasn't a lot, and it was only when I was a very small child. Not that that makes it any better. It shouldn't have happened at all. I feel like it is super normalized in Eastern European cultures and other cultures around the world to beat up your kid, and so many of my friends are like, oh, you got beat up, I got beat up too, like it doesn't matter, haha. I was the most sensitive kid on planet Earth. While my mom was beating me up, I used to repeat to myself that I hate her. I literally said affirmations in my brain that I hate you, I hate you, I hate you every time she would beat me up. It did matter to me, and it does matter to a lot of people. No matter if it's normalized in your culture or not, children should not be beat up. No matter if your kid can take it or not, because what if they can't? And then they won't talk to you ever again after they move out. So that just makes me really irrationally angry when I see a parent hitting their kid or anyone saying it's not a big deal. And sometimes you need that to discipline. Well, then don't be surprised if your kid never talks to you again once they reach adulthood. Growing up that way, what I basically learned is that I do not have a connection to these people. And it was a very confusing feeling as a child to feel as though the parents that I live in a house with and that I'm supposed to love and that everyone else is so connected to around me, to their parents, I don't have a singular emotion towards other than severe anger, resentment, sadness, and this confusing mix of all the bad emotions that a human can feel, but none of the good ones. My mom would constantly try to hug me or say that she loves me, and my dad was not really a hugger or a saying I love you-er, but every time I didn't say it back to my mom, or I would just stand there like this while she would hug me, my dad would always come to me after and be like, you don't love your mom, you don't love your mom, how can you do that to her, don't you not love her? And I would be scared of getting abused again, so I would say, of course, I'm just not a hugger. If you know me, you know that I'm the most cuddly, emotional person on this entire earth. I love hugging my friends, okay? I love even cuddling my friends. If I'm dating you, we will be cuddling a lot. I'm the most physical touch, showing affection. Physical touch is one of my top ways that I show affection, okay? I just never felt any affection towards my mother. And I remember specifically when my dad would ask me, and those times I would just feel like a horrible human being, because what person isn't capable of loving their parents and wanting to hug their mom and saying back I love you? And how am I not capable of harboring these emotions that I'm supposed to have towards the people who have brought me on this earth and raised me. And I'm just not capable of that. Am I a narcissist? Am I a sociopath? Am I a psychopath? Is there something wrong with me? Why do I not love these people? Why do I not feel connected to these people? And I used to beat myself up, and especially when I would try to sort of untangle these emotions as a teen who was still incapable of putting into words exactly what I feel and how I feel it, recognizing my emotions. Whenever I try to have a discussion about this with my peers who had, even if not great relationships to their parents, almost no one in my close vicinity was as unconnected from their parents as I was. So I'd always get, oh, but they're your parents. They are your parents. I remember this one specific time. In high school, I spent a lot of time with my high school boyfriend's family, and I liked being over there a lot more than being with my own family. And one time my mom had a psychotic break on one of our family gatherings, and my brother lives in Germany, so me and my brother and my niece, who's only 1 year younger than me, so we're more like cousins, I'd say. We just got in the car and drove away in the middle of the night because my mom was having one of her psychotic yelling, crying, and everything else episodes. And it was so bad that we couldn't do anything else but get out of there. And I remember when I came back from Germany, sitting down with my boyfriend's family at their house, and his mom was like, oh, I heard about the story with your mom and with your parents, blah, blah, blah. You know, I'm sorry that that happened, but you know that she just probably just wants the best for you and she is still your mom. And that kind of sums up what kind of advice I'd get throughout my childhood and teen years about my parents, is that they are still your parents. They are still your parents. No matter that they never prioritized you, cared about your emotions, tried to connect with you in a way that also works for you, tried to learn your love languages, your interests, what you want in life, and support you, they are still your parents. And, you know, if you don't have a connection to them, that is on you. You're the child, you should respect them, and you should be the one to try. And it made me feel really like a horrible human being for so long. And oh, I didn't think I'd get emotional about this again, but here I am getting emotional because it really felt like the worst person on planet Earth for not having any connection towards my parents, and not only not feeling love, but feeling anger and hating them and just wanting to get out of that house. And I felt like there was something wrong with me. And no child should feel that way. And if you feel that way about your parents, I'm here to tell you that it is okay. It is not your fault. You're literally a kid. You didn't ask to be brought into this world. And if your parents fail to raise you in a way that makes you connect to them, that is not your fault. You're a child and they are the parent. It's not your fault. It is normal and it happens to people out there. It happened to me. And I don't want you to feel as bad and as guilty about it and as shameful about it, because I have carried that guilt and that shame with me my entire life for way too many years. And I have only recently, in recent years, started to untangle that mess and leave it behind and be okay with feeling the way that I do. And I don't want you to feel that way for decades, because it is truly not your fault and you're not a horrible human being. And I get you and I love you and we'll get through this together, but it's not your fault. If anyone should feel shame and guilt, it's your parents, it's not you. God, I really didn't think I'd get that emotional about that, because I have worked a lot in therapy, and I also did this thing called family constellation, where it is basically, you can look up the process of it. It is a form of therapy. You can do it in groups, you can do it individually, to get through a lot of my barriers when it comes to the connection to my family. So I have worked a lot on that, but wow, I guess it does still make me emotional. I mean, it is, after all, the biggest pain point of my entire life, never having had parents, and I've been grieving that my entire life. The one positive point that I can sort of see with that is, if I was to be really close with my parents, I'm sure their passing would affect me a lot. And in this way, their passing won't break me, because I've been grieving the loss of my parents my entire life. I want to get a little bit more into how I sort of came to the conclusion that I don't want any contact with them. And it wasn't this one turning point of waking up one day and realizing that I never want to talk to them again. It was sort of just a natural follow-up to never having developed any connection with them in that house that didn't feel like home at all, and that I have tried to get out of my entire life, even a lot earlier than 18, but I didn't manage. But then at 18, when I finally moved out, I just sort of naturally drifted away from them. And whenever my mom would call me and try to connect with me about what kind of flower is growing in the garden and what did I eat today, I'd just get angry, and she would try to do that every single day and have like a 10-15 minute call with me about absolutely nothing. And I felt like that is taking away my energy. It's making me more negative, and I just really don't want to be doing that. I don't care. I don't care. I truly don't care. And at that point, I still felt guilty. So I took her calls. Whenever I tried to take her calls less, she would email me, she would call me nonstop. And it got to a point where I once blocked her while I was still 19-ish, living in the same country as them. And she threatened me with 100 emails. She threatened me with coming to my house. She knew where I lived. So that was the point that I decided I never want them to know where I live ever again. Sort of, that was also, I think, what subconsciously pushed me to get a job as soon as I could with the Middle Eastern airline that I ended up working at, because they arrange your visa, they do everything for you. And as soon as I turned 21 and I could apply to Emirates was the airline that I went with, I moved to Dubai. And I remember having that last call with my mom before my plane took off from Hungary. And then after I landed in Dubai, I blocked them absolutely everywhere. I blocked my mom, I blocked my dad, I blocked their numbers, their emails, any type of social media accounts that they then made after to try and establish contact with me. I made all of my social media private, and I have never felt that good my entire life. But there was also this immense guilt of, I think one of the hardest things that you deal with, especially if you feel this way and you want to do this and you want to go no contact with your parents and you're estranged from your parents, is understanding why they are the way that they are. I completely understand how the childhood that my dad and my mom went through shaped them in the way that it did. And I also completely understand how the traumatic events that they went through shaped them the way that they did, and how they were not malicious with not giving me any attention or not emotionally connecting to me. They were just simply incapable of it. And that is the hardest thing to accept, because knowing that you'd want to help these people, because I'm not a bad person and I know that they are not bad people. They didn't do this to hurt me on purpose. And that is why they can never even recognize that they ever did anything wrong, or that they have ever hurt me, or that they have in some way pushed me away. And I'm sure your parents are this way too if you're watching this video, that you cannot make them understand that they ever did anything wrong, because either they're narcissistic or just a lot of the trauma and what they went through in their life prevents them from recognizing any of their mistakes, really. And that is also something that I had to live with, is that I'm never going to get an apology. I'm never even going to get any sort of understanding from them. And they're never going to see my viewpoint, because they are simply emotional intelligence-wise incapable of it. And I'm just going to have to live with that. And that sort of leads back to grieving, not having had parents ever, and never being able to experience that connection to a mom or to a dad, because that is such a natural part of life. It is the most natural part to have connection with your parents, and I'm never going to get that ever. And I'm emotional again, but yes, I've been creating that for 24 years, so it is fine, but it does hurt, and that's okay. It is, I think, the biggest blessing if you have a good relationship with your parents or your family in general. And if you're someone who has that and still for some reason you're watching this video, then please cherish that as much as you can, because not everyone is as lucky. And I think one other thing, maybe you're watching this because your partner struggles with the same thing that I struggle with, or one of your close friends, and you want to understand them more, is that parents are different. We're all individual, and we're also individual in the way that childhood trauma affects us. Some people may have went through the same things that I have went through, and they come out of it still being close to their parents or still wanting to connect to them, because it affected them a lot differently than it affected me. Maybe I'm just a really emotional, really sensitive being. I mean, I for sure am, and I can't acknowledge that, but that doesn't mean that my feelings are invalid, or that what I want from life and not wanting to connect with them is invalid, because it's not. So please don't tell your partner, or if you're dating someone, or your friends, that they are still your parents and it is on them to connect with them, because trust me, no child chooses to go into contact with their parents. Imagine being so unempathetic and insensitive to tell a child who wants nothing more on this planet to have a parental connection that they should try more, because we have tried our entire lives. And when we finally get to the point of, I don't want this anymore, I don't care anymore, I never want to see or hear anything from these people ever again, at that point we have tried everything our entire life, from the moment we're born, as toddlers, as small children, as teens, as young adults, maybe even as adults, depending on when you reach this point in your life. We have tried everything, and no one comes to this conclusion easily. So do not go around telling people to connect with their parents that they have tried to connect to their entire lives and then eventually cut off because it was just for their mental health. Yeah, I think that guilt and that shame that you feel and the outside judgment are some of the hardest things to deal with, because they are daily reminders, especially if it's people that somehow know your parents, or maybe a childhood friend whose parent is friends with yours. Those people will maybe have looked at your childhood from the outside and seen you growing up and saw nothing wrong, but you were the one in that home, and you were the one who went through everything, and you were the one who were affected by it. So even if to the outside person it doesn't seem like you had a bad childhood, and they will never understand, your feelings are completely valid, and you don't need to explain that to a neighbor or your childhood friend's parent, or even your childhood friend. If you don't want to talk to them, don't talk to them. And I genuinely say that with so much love, is that if you're someone who thinks about cutting off your parents, do. By all means do. Because the peace that I reached and the personal development that I had in the period of my life where I was completely no contact with my parents was so high. And of course, there was the guilt, the shame, the outside judgment, and there's always this immense anxiety that maybe somehow they will find you or contact you, especially if you have psychotic stalker parents. They might find you, they might try to contact you in different ways, and whenever you get that message and your stomach drops and you're in the kitchen for crying, it will feel really bad. But the peace you feel not having to take those calls that mean nothing to you, and not having to pretend to be connected to this person and essentially act your way through a child-parent connection, is just so freeing. And I think whether it is you moving away far away from them, or whether it is you just blocking them everywhere and not giving them your address, if that is a step that you feel like you need to take, do it. Because although you never know whether you're ever going to connect to them again, or whether it's going to be forever, and you don't know the circumstances that may arise that would make you have to reach out, or them have to reach out again, if you feel in that moment that that is a period in your life where you need to cut off your parents completely, do it, and listen to your intuition, and don't care about anyone's opinion. Especially don't care about someone's opinion who has a good relationship with their parents, because they will never understand, okay? They can be the most empathetic person on earth. They will never understand. So if you want to listen to outside opinions, get someone's opinion who is also estranged from their parents, or who has had a horrible childhood and is thinking about it. Go on Estranged Kids on Reddit, find videos like this, find a community. We can connect in the comment section and share our stories and encourage each other to put our mental health first. Because don't go running to advice to people who never went through this, because it is such a unique experience that I hope not a lot of people went through, but I know that, yeah, there's a lot of people out there in this world. I would hope there's not, but I know there are, who have went through this thing, and you will never ever function in the way that someone with a great parental connection functions. And that is not to say, oh, you can never be happy, you will not reach enlightenment, I don't know, you will never get this fulfillment. No, you will. You will find so much more fulfillment out there than your family. You will find your soul family in people from all around the world that means so much more to you than your mom or your dad ever did. You will find fulfillment in your career, in your job, in your hobbies, in nature, in traveling. You will find so much love out there because you've been looking for love your entire life. And you have so much love to give because you never got to give that love to your parents as a child, that if you just pour that love back into yourself and you pour it out there into the world, you will get so much love back and you can't be happy and you can't be fulfilled. I promise you that. But don't go look for that in places over and over again where you have never found it. Now I want to kind of touch on having circumstances arise where you may need to connect with your parents again, or you may need to have some form of contact with them again, even if you have cut them off for years. Because when I cut off my parents, I was 100% certain that I never want any type of contact, not even a written word with them ever again. And I was 100% sure, and I knew in my heart, never talking to these people again. However, for the course of the last year, it was 3 very amazing years of my life that I had absolutely no contact to them. But over the course of this last year, some things came up, especially with my brother and my niece, where I needed to step in because my mom truly is, she should be in a white robe, grippy socks, okay? But she is not. And I mean that with no disrespect or hatred. I just mean objectively, if you look at her from the outside. That woman is a crazy woman, and there have been a lot of things where it was hurting my brother, it was hurting my niece, and they were unable to go about their day-to-day lives normally without me stepping in, saying, stop this shit. I'm not going to get into details, not really because it's no one business, because I already share everything on here, but I don't exactly know how I would go about sharing this, or if I ever really want to truly open up to that extent. But I needed to step in and I needed to make contact with them again. However, I think the most important thing that you can do in a situation like that is set your boundaries. Because although a few years ago I would not have been able to contact them or keep very, very low contact with them in a way that doesn't affect me mentally, now at 24, I have took the steps. I went to therapy, I went to family constellation, and most importantly, I have realized that my feelings are valid. And I don't need to feel any shame or guilt about never having been emotionally connected to them and not wanting anything to do with these people. That is valid and that is okay. And it is more common out there than you would think. So when I decided to accept a very, very low contact relationship again, it was only on my terms only. And I told myself, as soon as they overstep my boundaries, I am gone again and they are blocked again everywhere. And I told it to my brother and my niece as well. Like, look, I am willing to have an email once every 3 months, like 1 sentence or so. But if they overstep that and I start getting harassed and called and stalked down again, I will be out of their lives so fast and they'll truly never ever see me again. And this time, if something ends up happening between you guys, you need to solve it yourself, because they will never hear from me ever again, because I don't care and I cannot do this to myself mentally. And that is, I think, the major thing, and that I have realized, and why I went to family constellation, is when I cut them off for the first time, I thought I didn't care. I thought I 100% was over it and I never want contact with them ever again. But I was talking about it with my friend, and she said, like, when you talk about this, I can feel you still care. You would talk about it completely differently if you wouldn't care anymore. So I made a goal, whenever you go to family constellation, again, look up how it works, because it is a lengthy process to explain, and this video is already so long and I have more important things to share. But when I went to family constellation, the goal that I went there with is for me to be able to let go my family's comments, to let go their craziness, their emails, their calls, the messages that I do not want from them. If that pops up, to just be able to let it go, to be able to let go of their comments whenever, if I ever see them in person, and to just not care anymore. And we worked through that in a 3-hour-long family constellation. And it was honestly the most rewarding thing that I think I've ever done. in my entire life, and I do want to go back because I think it is something sort of like therapy that you need to keep doing to be able to reach your goal with it. But when I made contact again and I did actually see them, I saw them twice since. I don't plan on seeing them again in the near future, but I will occasionally send an email back when I get one. I went there not caring about these people anymore, and I have not cared my entire life, or so I thought, but I held so much resentment and anger and sadness that I haven't worked through at that point that I did have feelings towards them. It just wasn't any positive feelings, but I did care because I did have some sort of feeling towards the situation. And I would lie to you if I say that now I have 100% worked through it and there's no day where I don't have resentment or anger towards my parents. No, just the other day I got an email from them saying like, oh, you could check in more. I was thinking about blocking them immediately, but I didn't. I just haven't replied yet, and I don't know if I will. It will probably be something like, I'll check in when I want to check in. Because truly, me going 3 years no contact and then you now thinking that I all of a sudden want to establish a relationship with you, like, no. As I told you guys, it was an outside circumstance why I needed to make contact with them again. Basically, the end of those 3 years, my brother and my niece were getting harassed by them to an extent where they were not able to live a normal life, and it was also just weighing on me so hardly that I saw the pros and cons, and I was like, okay, more therapy, more family constellation, and maybe then I can do, like, as I said, on my terms only, like 1 email every 3 months or so, just to say, hey, I'm alive. Because again, my mom is a psychotic woman and she was off her rockers making all of these theories and everything, just so that my niece and my brother don't get harassed, and then this huge situation, it's not weighing on me. And I do think that this time I care less, and I don't necessarily ever care to establish a relationship ever with them again. It is sort of just a compromise that I made with myself, instead of having this constant anxiety whether they would make a new email to send me a message or something out of the blue and constantly harass family members that I'm actually close to and care about. I can just send them with no emotions this 1 email a couple of times per year. And it has been something that has worked this past year, but as I told you guys, if it ever stops working for me, I will not do it anymore. And that is something that I encourage you to do, is set your boundaries, okay? This thing can be on your terms. It can be on your terms. And something that actually my brother made me realize before I got in contact with them again is that I was so afraid of it never being on my terms and them never respecting my boundaries. I was the one who held the power the entire time. When I was at dinner with my brother and he told me that, it's like, why are you so afraid when you are the one who holds the power and you can set your own boundaries and you can be the one to say never again? That was the most freeing thing that I quite possibly have ever heard. And that happened to me besides the family constellation, is that I realized, wait, I am the one who holds the power. So what if my mom somehow gets my number again and gets my new number and calls me 10 times a day? Blocked again. She makes a new number, blocked again. I tell them, okay, 1 email whenever I feel like it, and they send me 10, blocked again. What if they find out my address, they show up at my house? So what? I see her on the street, I laugh. Happens again, I laugh again. I lock her at the house. I call the police. Whatever it is, I hold the power and you hold the power too. Whether you never want to contact them ever again and no one in your family can ever make you, and your power lies in that, or whether there is a circumstance where you have to be in contact again, you have your boundaries and your boundaries are your power, and you are the one who holds the power. Because you can cut them off at any time ever again, and whatever action they take after to try and connect to you, you can block those attempts, you can let them go, and you can just live your life. And it doesn't matter if your mom is following you on the street, because guess what? You can go into a police station. I don't actually know what I would do in that situation. Probably just call my brother and laugh, and then if it ever happens again, then yeah, I'd go into a police station, because But yeah, I want you to realize that you hold the power. You don't need to feel guilty. You don't need to feel ashamed about anything. It is your life. Your feelings are valid. You feel like you don't connect to them, you don't want contact with them, absolutely valid. It was their job to raise a child. And if they raise that child in a way where that child doesn't want anything to do with them, then it is not on the child. Then that is the child that they have raised, and it is on them. And you have tried your entire life to connect with them and it never happened. That is not on you. You are the child and it is not on you, and you should never feel bad for that. And you have your boundaries and you're the one who holds the power. And don't listen to anyone who tells you otherwise, and especially don't listen to people who have a great relationship with their parents, okay? Because those will be the ones to tell you, oh, you haven't tried enough. They're still your parents. Who cares? Who cares? Blood means truly nothing to me. Truly, absolutely nothing. I cut off my parents because they were such a huge negative force in my life. I can cut off anyone, okay? Blood or not, blood means nothing. And I know it means nothing to you if you're watching this video. And as I said again, in one way that is a beautiful thing, because once you realize that, you can really make family out of anything, because again, blood means nothing. So that is my recommendation to you, is to just take all the steps to make sure that you can validate your own feelings and you feel comfortable in who you are and your decisions, and you can have strict boundaries, because that is key. And yeah, that is kind of sort of my experience with being estranged from my parents and trying to navigate this in my adulthood. I, again, hope that you do not relate to this video, but I know it will be relatable for a lot of people, whether you were watching this for yourself or for someone you're close to. Excuse the lighting changes, excuse the hair, but I thought raw and real, because what gets more raw and real than telling the entire internet your traumatic childhood and the fact that you are not in contact to your parents and you don't feel anything towards them. Again, humor is my coping mechanism, okay? But thank you so much for making it to the end of the video. If there's any important point that you want me to touch on, please leave it in the comments and I can definitely tell you my experience with that, or we can have a discussion about it in the comments as well. But these upcoming few weeks, all of my weekly topics will be about parents and the different kind of traumas that I went through with them, or kind of my life experiences, just trying to find myself and navigate my life without having any parental guidance or connection. So definitely, if you want a specific topic, or if you have a specific request on what you want me to open up about, leave it in the comments. Also, what we can do in the comments is support each other, share our stories if you feel comfortable enough to, leave your own experiences. If you have something that you just want to get off your chest and you feel like no one in your life gets it, well, obviously therapy is your first choice, but you can just leave it in the comments, and let's truly make the comment section a positive community and a space of people who might not have parents, but they have each other and they have found family in their friends, in communities outside of what truly is their blood, because again, it does mean nothing. And yeah, again, didn't think I was gonna get so emotional and that I was gonna rant so much, because looking at the camera now, it stopped recording once at like 30 minutes and now at 20 again, so it will be like a 40-minute video, I guess. I need to absolutely hurry up because my card is full again, but yeah, that is my entire video. I love you, I believe in you, your feelings are valid, and you don't need to live your life how anyone outside of you wishes for you to live it in this life, because it is yours, okay? And let's support each other in the comments. Love you, and I'll see you next week. And hopefully I could help someone with this. Bye bye.